Week 17 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few defense DST units I'd look to drop this week. The first one, the Denver Broncos. So I thought the Broncos would have a great ball game in Week 16, but obviously they got the doors blown off versus the Los Angeles Rams. And now going to the Kansas City Chiefs here, there's no way you could trust them, and there's no way you're going to play them. Right now, owned in 80% of fantasy leagues. I would hope to see that number drop drastically. You're down 50+%. You would think this week. So the last few weeks here for Denver, they were playing good football for the most part, at least decent football on defense, until the Rams out of nowhere blew them out. Week 14 versus Kansas City, the same matchup. 28 points allowed, 2 sacks, 3 intos. Week 15 versus Arizona, 15 points allowed, 3 sacks, 3 intos. And then week 16 at the Rams, 45 points allowed. So right now, after getting destroyed by that weak Ram offense with all the injuries, and now going to Kansas City, their slam dunk defense to drop this week. The next defense I look to drop this week here on the Warriors, the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns here were 1 week use only, and a lot of fantasy owners went out there and got them, including me. But luckily I overcame them not doing much and moving on to the next round. But anyway, the last few games here for Cleveland. Week 13 at Houston, 12 points allowed, 2 intos, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 touchdowns, a return touchdown. Week 14 at Cincy, 23 points allowed, 2 sacks and into. Week 15 versus Baltimore, 3 points allowed, 3 sacks and into, fumble recovery, a block kick. And week 16 versus New Orleans, 17 points allowed with an into. So I know this week a good matchup on paper at the Commanders that give up the 7th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. But right here, Carson Wentz possibly might be starting again. Heineke, the Magic's falling off a little bit as well. And this Brown team, they just really haven't done much this season except the 2 big ball games in week 13 and week 15. But besides that, it's been tough to trust them. And like I said, the last 4 out of 5 games, 4 less fantasy points. So they are dropped this week. And the third and final defense, DST unit, I look to drop the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans, their defense in the beginning of the year got off to a good start, but the last few weeks they haven't done much. And now a high-powered Cowboy offense is coming to town in Tennessee here in week 17. So the last few games for Tennessee, week 13 at Philly, 35 points allowed, 2 sacks. Week 14 versus the Jags, 36 points allowed. Week 15 at the Chargers, 17 points allowed, 3 sacks, 2 intos. And week 16 in a plus matchup on paper versus Houston, 19 points allowed, a sack and an into. Only good for 4 fantasy points. So this week here, Cowboys give up the second least amount of fantasy points to defenses on the season. I know this Cowboy team, they're good for a few turnovers. It seems like weekly is Dak Prescott, even though he's still been putting up some decent numbers. But this Titan team, they've just been a mess over the last few weeks. And like I said, they've been on a tailspin, losing 5 games in a row. And that has to start with the defense as well, even though this is a Thursday night game and things could be different. But I would drop them this week. So that's a few defense DST units I look to drop here for week 17 of the fantasy football season.